I laid my brother to rest 42 years ago. His name was Thomas, though we always called him Tommy. He was just 19 when the Greyhound bus he'd been riding skidded off the Kokala Highway during a fierce snowstorm that January of 1983. They told us 17 people didn't make it that night. Tommy was one of them. I was the one who had to identify his body, cold and broken in the morgue up in Hope, British Columbia. I was only 23 at the time. Barely old enough to make sense of something like that, and somehow, it fell to me to tell our mother her youngest boy was gone. Then last Tuesday, something happened that I still can't wrap my head around. It was just after 2 o'clock in the morning when my phone rang. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. The area code was 604, Vancouver. I hesitated. At 65, I've learned that nothing good ever comes from calls in the middle of the night. But something, some gut feeling I can't explain, made me answer. Maybe it was the same instinct that used to pull me out of bed when Tommy had those bad dreams as a kid. I picked up and heard a voice. David? Is this David? I sat up straight in bed. My heart kicked hard in my chest, thudding like it was trying to escape. The voice on the other end sounded worn down, hesitant, like someone who hadn't spoken in ages. But buried beneath that rough edge was something that made my blood go cold. Who is this? I asked. There was a pause. I could hear breathing, labored, unsteady. It's me, the voice said. It's Tommy. The phone slipped out of my hand. I was shaking so bad, I could barely scoop it off the floor. When I finally did, the call was still live. I could hear him, breathing, waiting. This isn't funny, I snapped, my voice trembling. Whoever you are, this is cruel. My brother died 42 years ago. I know, the voice replied, soft and worn. I know how long it's been. I only recently figured out who I am. I found something. A newspaper clipping about the crash. It had a photo. There's a name under it, Thomas Carr. That's me, right? I'm Thomas Carr, aren't I? I couldn't speak. The room was tilting. I gripped the nightstand just to stay grounded. Where are you? I asked, forcing the words out. I'm not totally sure, he said. They call it the downtown east side, I think. Someone told me that. I've been here a long time. I stay at a shelter on East Hastings Street. I think. But I don't remember how I got here. I don't remember anything from before maybe 15 years ago. Just waking up in a hospital. They said I'd been found on the street. No identification. No name. And I couldn't tell them who I was. My thoughts were spinning out. It couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of scam. Somebody found Tommy's name and decided to mess with me. But I had to test him. What do you remember? I asked. Not much, he said, his voice distant. Just feelings. Sometimes I dream about snow, being cold, people screaming. And sometimes I see a house in my dreams. It has a blue door. And someone's there, someone who used to make pancakes. With blueberries. Every Sunday. That hit me hard. I felt the tears start, hot and sudden. Because I remembered that house. I remembered that exact blue door. And our mom, she made blueberry pancakes every single Sunday, without fail. Tommy used to eat more than anyone else at the table. What do you look like? I asked, my voice barely audible. Old, he said quietly. There was a sadness to it. Really old. My face, it's worn down. I've lived rough for a long time. But the photo in the article, I saw myself in it. Even after all these years, I saw the eyes. They're mine. Tommy had a scar. I said slowly. On his left forearm. Got it when he crashed his bike at age 7. Needed 12 stitches. The line was silent for a beat. I have a scar there, he said finally. Left arm. Faint, but it's there. I never knew how I got it. By then, I was crying in a way I hadn't since the day we buried him. Tell me where you are, I said. I'm coming to get you. I don't think you should, he answered softly. I don't think I'm the guy you remember. I don't remember being him. I'm just someone who's been lost for a long time. Living on the streets. I probably look like hell. I probably smell. I thought someone out there should know that maybe I didn't die in that crash. That maybe there was a mistake. I spoke firmly. Tell me where. Right now. He gave me the address of a shelter off East Hastings. I grabbed a pen with shaking hands and wrote it down. From Kelowna to Vancouver, it's a 7-hour drive. Longer if the weather turns. I looked at the clock, 2:15 in the morning. Stay put, I told him. Don't go anywhere. I'm leaving right now. I'll be there before noon. Understand? Just stay there. Okay, he whispered. Okay, David. I'll wait. The call ended. I sat there in the darkness, stunned. Maybe for half a minute. Then I got moving. Clothes. Wallet. Keys. Sarah, my wife of 38 years, stirred in bed. David? What's going on? I have to go to Vancouver, I said, and my own voice sounded like someone else's. Hollow and far away. At 2 in the morning? She said, alarm rising. David, what's happened? I looked at her, at the woman who'd been my partner through everything. But how do you even begin to explain something like this? How do you tell someone your dead brother just called? I'll explain later, I said. I have to go. I'm sorry. I was out the door before she could press further. That drive was the longest 7 hours I've ever endured. I kept the radio off. The silence felt safer. My mind was a storm, memories, doubts, wild hope, gut-deep dread. Part of me was certain I was being played. That I'd pull up to some con man who had dug up details about my brother's life and decided to exploit them. But another part, the part that never fully accepted Tommy was gone, was screaming that this was real. I thought back to that morgue. I was 23. They pulled back a sheet and showed me a body that had been mangled, left out in the cold for 12 hours after the wreck. His face was swollen, cut up. But I saw the hair. The build. The shape of the jaw. I said it was him. Yes, I told them. That's Thomas Carr. But what if I had been wrong? What if grief clouded my judgment? What if I had identified the wrong person? The thought made me sick. Because if that was true, if Tommy had been alive all these years, suffering, forgotten, stripped of his name and his life, then the weight of that was unbearable. While I was living, marrying Sarah, raising kids, building a career, carving out holidays and anniversaries, he had been alone. While our mother died 10 years ago, still crying over her baby boy, he had been out there, just a few hours away. I pressed the gas a little harder. I hit the outskirts of Vancouver around 11:30 that morning. The downtown east side was just as rough as people said it was, maybe worse. The deeper I drove into the east side of Vancouver, the worse it got. Windows were boarded up. People were curled up in doorways, motionless. The sidewalks were scattered with needles and trash. And somewhere in the middle of all this was my brother. The shelter on East Hastings was a squat, tired-looking building, painted a dull gray that seemed to blend into the cold concrete around it. It looked like it hadn't changed in decades. I pulled the door open, it was unlocked, and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. That sharp tang of cleaning chemicals, like someone had tried to scrub out years of sweat and suffering with industrial disinfectant. But underneath, the odor of too many bodies packed into too little space lingered like a shadow. There was a woman at the front desk, maybe in her 40s, wearing a faded hoodie and looking half exhausted. She glanced up when I walked in. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm trying to find someone," I said carefully. "He might not remember his full name, but he called me this morning. Around 2 o'clock. Said he'd been staying here." Her eyes narrowed slightly as she studied my face. Then, after a second, she nodded. "Tommy," she said. "Yeah, I remember. He was pretty shaken up. Said it was urgent. Asked to use the phone?" Her voice softened. "He's a sweet man. Quiet. Keeps to himself. Been coming through here off and on for maybe 8 years. Is he here now?" I asked. She pointed toward a hallway on the left. "Check the common room." I thanked her and walked that way, but each step felt like my legs might give out. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The door creaked as I pushed it open. The common room was wide, lit with flickering fluorescence. A handful of mismatched chairs and tables were scattered around, most of them occupied. A small television hummed in one corner, showing the news on mute. Some folks glanced up when I stepped inside, their eyes wary, guarded. And then I saw him. He was sitting at a table by the window, his back turned to me. His hair had gone silver and was pulled back into a short ponytail. He wore a threadbare flannel shirt, the kind someone had probably donated years ago. His shoulders were hunched forward, like he was trying to fold himself in. I moved toward him slowly, my limbs stiff, almost disconnected from my body. "Tommy?" I said. He turned. The man who looked up at me barely resembled the teenage brother I had lost. His face was sun-darkened and weathered, deeply lined from years of exposure and hardship. A scar ran across his left cheek, a mark I didn't recognize. He looked like a man in his 70s, not someone who was 61. But his eyes were exactly the same, brown with tiny flecks of gold. Our father had the same ones. And so did Tommy. "David?" he said. His voice cracked, the word barely holding together. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, frozen. This man, this ghost from 4 decades past, was standing in front of me. He slowly rose to his feet, joints stiff, body worn down. He looked smaller than Tommy had been, thinner, frilier. Maybe he had shrunk with time, or maybe it was just the way life had weighed him down. But in his expression, there was something. A recognition. A reaching. "You came," he whispered. "I wasn't sure you would." "Show me your arm," I said. My voice came out hard. "Left side." He paused, then quietly rolled up his sleeve. There it was. A faded scar, running about 4 inches long down his forearm. The same one he got when he crashed his bike at age 7 and needed 12 stitches. I reached for the table to steady myself. My knees were about to give out. "I need to sit," I muttered. He pulled out a chair for me, and I dropped into it like my bones had turned to rubber. He eased back into his seat across from me, watching carefully, like I might vanish if he blinked. "Tell me what you remember about the crash," I said. My voice was hoarse. He rubbed his face with both hands and took a long breath. "I don't remember the moment it happened," he said slowly. "But I have dreams, always the same ones. I'm on a bus. It's snowing. The driver's trying to slow down, but the road's slick, and we're sliding. People start screaming. And it's freezing. So cold I think I'm going to die. He paused. Then nothing. Just blackness. Silence. His hands trembled a bit as he continued. The next clear memory I have is waking up in a hospital. A nurse told me I'd been found unconscious on the street. That I'd been beaten, maybe robbed. But I didn't remember any of it. I didn't know my name. Couldn't tell them who I was or where I was from. They kept me for 3 days. Ran tests. Said there were old injuries. Head trauma. Possibly from years earlier. What year was that? I asked. 2010. He replied. February, I think. I didn't even know what year it was until they told me. My brain was racing. That was 27 years after the crash. What had happened in all that time? Where had he been? And before that? I asked. You remember anything? He shook his head. Just flashes. Nothing clear. I remember being cold. Living rough, maybe in the mountains. I think I worked somewhere, like construction. Got paid under the table. But it's like chasing fog. Everything slips away. I looked down at his hands, scarred, worn, thick with old calluses. The hands of a man who had labored hard and long. For a long time. He said. I didn't even try to remember. I just got through each day. Found a bed if I could. Slept on the street if I couldn't. Even the last 15 years, there are holes. Whole weeks that are gone. Just gone. Some of the doctors, the ones at the free clinics, they think I might have a dissociative condition. From trauma, probably. When did you start trying to remember? I asked. About 6 months back. He said. There was a woman here, a volunteer. She was sorting through stacks of old newspapers to recycle. She showed me one from January 1983. Said something like, "Can you believe this was 40 years ago?" His eyes turned distant. And the date, it hit me. It felt familiar. Like a weight I didn't understand. I asked if I could keep the paper. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a fragile piece of folded newsprint, yellowed and brittle. He handled it like it was sacred. Gently, he unfolded it and slid it across the table to me. It was an old front-page article. The headline read, 17 Dead in Highway Bus Tragedy. There, in a grid of victim photos, was a picture I knew like the back of my hand, Tommy, grinning in his high school graduation photo. The same one Mom had sent to the newspaper. I stared at that photo for hours, he said. And something inside me snapped into place. I knew that face. Not from the mirror, I don't look like that anymore, but from somewhere deep inside. The name under it said Thomas Carr. And I just kept whispering it, over and over. Thomas. Tommy, he said again quietly. And the way he said it mattered. It landed differently this time. Like the name belonged to him. Like it had been waiting all these years to find its way back. I stared down at the newspaper clipping spread across the table, my brother's young face frozen in time, smiling back at me from another life. He looked so sure of the world. So untouched. I started digging after that. He went on. There's a library not far from here. The librarian helped me pull old records. I found the obituary. I found the list of family members left behind. He swallowed. Your name was there. David Carr. Brother. And there was an address in Kelowna. It took me 3 months just to work up the nerve to call. I didn't know if you'd still be there. Didn't know if you'd believe me. I'm still not sure I do. I said. The words came out sharper than I intended, edged with panic and guilt. Because if you really are Tommy, Then that means I made a mistake. I identified the wrong body. I told our mother the wrong son had died. Do you understand what that means? He flinched, like I had struck him, but he nodded slowly. I do, he said. And I'm sorry. I can't even imagine what this has done to you. Mom's gone, I said, and my voice broke wide open. She died 10 years ago. She spent 32 years believing you were dead. She never stopped grieving. Never. And if you're really my brother, then she died without ever knowing you were alive. The tears came hard then. I didn't bother wiping them away. I didn't care who saw us. Across the table, the man who might be Tommy was crying too. Silent tears carving clean paths down a face shaped by decades of hardship. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I swear I'm so sorry. We sat there like that for a long time. Two old men crying in the middle of a shelter common room while the world moved around us, pretending not to notice. Eventually, I wiped my face with my sleeve and forced myself to really look at him. Not just glance. Not just hope. We need proof, I said. A DNA test. That's the only way either of us will ever know for sure. He nodded immediately. Yes. I want that too. I need to know. I pulled out my phone and started searching. There was a private lab downtown that offered rapid DNA testing. It was expensive, but they promised results within 48 hours. I booked an appointment for 3 o'clock that afternoon. All right, I said, standing up. Let's go. He rose slowly, stiffness evident in every movement. As we walked out of the shelter together, I noticed how much shorter he was than I remembered. Tommy had been nearly my height. This man was at least 3 inches shorter. But years of poor nutrition, cold nights, and hard living can change a body in ways you never expect. The drive to the lab was quiet. I kept stealing glances at him in the passenger seat, searching for the brother I had lost. Sometimes I caught it, the shape of his ear, the way he rubbed his thumb against his fingers when he was nervous. Tommy had always done that. Other times, he looked like a stranger I had just met. The test itself was straightforward. Cheek swabs. Forms. Payment. The technician told us they would call me with the results in 2 days. When we stepped back out onto the sidewalk, reality hit me. So, I asked, where are you staying tonight? He shrugged. The shelter. Same as always. I looked at him standing there in worn-out clothes, shoes barely holding together, shoulders hunched like he was bracing for rejection. And I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk away. No, I said. Come on. I'm getting a hotel. You're staying with me. You don't have to. I know. I cut in. Come on. I found a hotel near Stanley Park and booked a room with 2 beds. The desk clerk gave us a look, me in clean clothes, him looking like someone who'd been living rough, but I didn't care. I paid in cash and took the key. Back in the room, I ordered pizza while he showered. He was in there for nearly 45 minutes. When he finally came out, his hair was clean and slicked back, his patchy beard gone. And for the first time, I really saw it. The shape of his face. The line of his jaw. Tommy's jaw. We ate in near silence, the television murmuring in the background. Eventually he spoke. Thank you, he said. For this. For not walking away. For believing me enough to try. I haven't decided what I believe yet, I said honestly. But I need the truth. Whatever it is. He nodded. Can I ask you something? Sure. What was I like before? He asked. Before all this. When I was Tommy. The question hit me harder than anything else that day. I set my pizza aside and leaned back against the headboard. You were good, I said after a moment. Really good. You were kind. You were the kid who brought home stray animals and cried over dead squirrels on the road. You wanted to be a veterinarian. His eyes filled again. You were supposed to start college in Vancouver that September. You were excited. Nervous, but excited. And you were funny. You could always make Mom laugh, even on her worst days. I swallowed. And you were brave. When Dad left, when you were 12, you told me we'd be okay. You said we'd take care of Mom together. And we did. I wish I could remember. He whispered. I wish I could remember being that person. Maybe you will, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. Maybe once you know for sure who you are, something will come back. That night, I lay awake listening to his breathing from the other bed. Slow. Steady. The sound of someone finally sleeping somewhere safe. I thought about calling Sarah, but I had no idea how to explain any of this out loud. So instead I sent a text. I'm okay. I'll explain everything when I get home. Her reply came right away. I love you. I love you too. Be safe. The next day passed quietly. We ate breakfast at a diner. I watched him eat like a man who hadn't had a real meal in months, which he probably hadn't. Later, we walked through Stanley Park. It felt important to move, to breathe, to not just sit in that room waiting for a phone call. As we walked, he told me more. About shelters. About winters that nearly killed him. About odd jobs paid in cash. About being robbed, beaten, arrested for simply existing. About the constant fog in his mind. I always felt like I was waiting, he said as we stood by the water. Like there was something I was supposed to do. Somewhere I was meant to be. But I could never remember what it was. I stood beside him, staring out at the water, wondering if the answer was finally about to find us. The phone rang at 2:30 on Thursday afternoon. We were back in the hotel room by then. I had already checked out, bags packed, ready to start the drive home. But I couldn't bring myself to leave until we got that call. The screen lit up with an unfamiliar number. I answered on the second ring. Hello, Mr. Carr? This is Sarah Chen from the Vancouver DNA lab. I'm calling with your test results. My hand trembled so hard I almost dropped the phone. Across from me, the man sitting on the edge of the bed, Tommy, or the man who might be Tommy, stared at me, wide-eyed and unblinking. Yes, I managed. This is David Carr. The results of your DNA sibling comparison are conclusive, she said, her voice steady and clear. The probability of full biological siblingship between you and the second subject is 97%. In plain terms, Mr. Carr, you and this individual are brothers. The entire room tilted around me. I dropped down onto the bed like the air had been pulled out of my chest. Are you certain? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Yes, sir. The results are definitive. Would you like me to send the full report by email? Yes, please, I said, and I gave her my address. I thanked her, then ended the call. I looked across the room, at my brother. My real brother. The same one I had buried 42 years ago. The same one I had grieved for every single day since. It's you, I said, my voice thick. You're really Tommy. He let out a sound, half a laugh, half a sob, like something inside him finally gave way. I'm Tommy, he whispered, more to himself than to me. I'm Thomas Carr. And then we were both crying. This time, I got up, crossed the room, and wrapped him in a hug. He felt small in my arms. Thin. Fragile. But he was real. He was alive. We held on to each other for what felt like forever, two broken men clinging to the truth neither of us had dared to believe until now. When I finally pulled back, I took a deep breath. "We need to figure out what happened," I said. "How you survived. Where you've been all this time." Tommy nodded. "I think I know someone who might be able to help. There's a doctor at the free clinic who's been working with me, Patricia Walsh. She specializes in trauma and memory loss. She might have answers." That afternoon, we went to the clinic. Dr. Walsh was in her early 50s, warm eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and the calm presence of someone who had heard more pain than most people could imagine. I told her everything, about the bus crash, the mistaken identity, the phone call, the DNA results. She listened without interruption, taking notes. Then she turned to Tommy. "If you're comfortable, I'd like to do a physical exam," she said gently. Tommy nodded. She had him lie back on the table and moved with practiced efficiency, checking his reflexes, shining a light into his eyes, tracing her fingers along his skull. She took her time with the old scars, old fractures, testing the joints and bones beneath the surface. When she was done, she stepped back and gave us a grave look. "You've got significant evidence of old trauma," she said to Tommy. "Multiple healed fractures, ribs, left arm, right ankle. You've got scarring across your torso and back. And here." She touched the back of his skull gently. "There's a depression in your skull. That tells me you suffered a serious impact injury at some point." "From the bus crash?" I asked. "It's very possible," she said. "Here's what I think, based on everything you've told me, and what I'm seeing." She pulled up a chair and sat facing both of us, her tone direct. "I believe Tommy survived the crash, but he was badly hurt. Most likely, he sustained a major head injury and was knocked unconscious. He might have been thrown from the wreck during the chaos. The surviving passengers reported pure confusion, snow, screams, darkness. It would have been easy to miss someone in the blizzard." She paused to let that sink in. "I think Tommy ended up away from the main wreckage. In the snow. Maybe half buried. Maybe overlooked. And I think the body you identified, David. I think it was someone else. Another young man. Same build, close in age. After hours in the cold and with facial trauma, it would have been nearly impossible to be sure. Especially for someone grieving. In shock. My stomach turned. She was right. God help me, she was right. What happened to him after that?" I asked, barely getting the words out. She took a deep breath. "Someone likely found him. Maybe a trucker. Maybe a local. Someone driving through. But I don't think they brought him to a hospital." "Why not?" "Because they may have had something to hide," she said carefully. "Maybe they were involved in illegal activity. Or maybe they saw an opportunity, an amnesiac kid with no identification, no memory. Easy to control. Easy to use." "You're saying someone kept him?" I asked, my voice cold. "I think someone exploited him," she said quietly. "Forced labor. There are known cases like this. Remote logging operations, illegal grows, off-the-books construction. Workers who won't ask questions because they can't. Workers who don't even know who they are." I looked at my brother. He was staring at the floor, fists clenched tight in his lap. "That would explain the memory loss," Dr. Walsh continued. "The gaps. Untreated head trauma. Years of exposure. Malnutrition. Substance use to cope. Your brain protected you the only way it could, by shutting down. Those dissociative episodes you described? Classic trauma response." I swallowed hard. "So, around 2010, I said slowly. He either escaped, or they dumped him. Dr. Walsh nodded. After 15 years of labor, his health was likely deteriorating. If he became a liability, they may have left him in Vancouver. Alone. Disoriented. And he spent another 15 years homeless. I said. While I was in Kelowna. While I had no idea. While I could have been searching. You could not have known, Tommy said softly. None of us could have. Dr. Walsh turned to me. I know your mother has passed. I nodded, unable to speak. I'm sorry. But David, you need to understand. The man sitting here, he is your brother by blood. That much is certain. But he is not the same 19-year-old you said goodbye to all those years ago. That boy is gone. She looked at Tommy with something like admiration. This man has survived things most people would not. He's been shaped by that. Changed by it. He is Tommy. But he is also someone new. I looked at my brother, really looked. At the streaks of gray in his hair. The lines across his face. The tired way he held his body, like it had been used up and patched together too many times. She was right. He wasn't the boy I lost in 1983. He was the man who had endured what came after. What do we do now? I asked quietly. That's up to you, she said. But I strongly recommend therapy for both of you. Tommy will need help processing this, reclaiming his identity. You'll need help learning how to reconnect. How to be brothers again. We walked out of that clinic in silence. The sunlight outside felt strange. Too normal for the weight of what we now knew. The sun was starting to go down, and the streets of Vancouver's east side were waking up. The sidewalks filled with the city's nighttime population, some wandering, some curled up against buildings, some just trying to disappear. Come back with me, I said as we stood there on the sidewalk. Come home to Kelowna. Stay with me and Sarah. We've got a spare room. We'll figure this out, together. He looked at me like I'd just spoken a language he hadn't heard in years. There was hesitation in his face, real fear. I don't know how to do that, he said softly. I don't know how to be somebody's brother. I don't know how to be part of a family. I've been on my own for so long. So we'll figure it out together, I told him. You and me. We'll learn. He didn't say anything right away. But after a long silence, he gave a slow nod. Okay, he said. Okay, David. I'll try. We hit the road the next morning. That 7-hour drive felt different this time. He sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window. I kept glancing over at him, this man who had once been my kid brother, who had somehow found his way back after 4 decades. We didn't talk much, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Just quiet. Thoughtful. When we pulled into my driveway, Sarah was already waiting on the porch. I'd called her the night before and told her everything. She cried through most of it, then told me to bring him home. As soon as we stepped out of the car, she came down the porch steps. She looked at Tommy long and hard. And then, with tears in her eyes, she opened her arms. Welcome home, Tommy, she said. He hesitated for half a second, then stepped into her embrace. I saw his shoulders start to shake again, and I knew he was crying. That was 3 months ago. And I'll be honest with you, it hasn't been easy. Tommy still wakes up from nightmares almost every night. He panics in crowds. He flinches at sudden noises. Being inside too long makes him restless. But he's in therapy twice a week now, slowly unpacking decades of trauma. We're working through it, one memory at a time. And those memories are coming back. Small ones, mostly. The taste of Mom's blueberry pancakes. The name of our old dog when we were kids. The scent of the lake house in the middle of summer. Just last week, he remembered a Christmas when he was 8. He remembered the red bicycle I had saved up all year to buy him. I think I'm starting to feel like him, he told me yesterday evening as we sat on the back deck, watching the sun dip behind the water. Like Tommy. Not just some guy with his DNA. But like I'm actually becoming him again. Or someone new who carries him inside. That makes sense, I said. It really does. My kids have all met him, 2 daughters, 1 son. The nieces and nephew he never knew he had. They've been cautious, curious, but kind. My grandson, 5 years old and full of energy, decided on day 1 that Tommy was his best friend. Tommy lights up when the kids are around. It's the most I've seen him smile. We've talked about what to do with the grave. There's a headstone in Kelowna's cemetery with his name carved into it. We've debated removing it, updating it, or just leaving it. As a marker for the life that ended on that snowy highway in 1983. We haven't made a decision yet. There's time. A couple weeks ago, Tommy started working part-time at a local garden center. Turns out he's got a quiet knack for plants. Says they're easier to deal with than people. They don't ask questions. They don't judge. He comes home with soil under his nails and stories about customers and fussy orchids. It's something. It's a step. He's learning how to be a person again. And I'm learning, too. See, grief's a strange thing. You think it has a timeline, a finish line, a rulebook. But it doesn't. I spent 42 years grieving a brother I thought was gone. And now he's here. But the grief hasn't disappeared. It just shifted. I still miss the boy who got on that bus. I still mourn the life he should have had. But I'm also grateful. Because somehow, despite everything, he made it through. He survived. And that matters more than anything. He asked me something the other night. Do you ever blame yourself? He said. For identifying the wrong body? Every day, I answered, honest as I could be. Every day since you called me. Don't, he said. You were 23. You lost your brother. You did the best you could. And if you had looked more carefully, they might never have found me. I might have died out there. At least this way. I'm here. I'm alive. I have a brother who drove 7 hours in the middle of the night because a stranger said my name. He's right, I guess. I'm trying to forgive myself. It's harder than I imagined. Sometimes, late at night, I lie in bed and think about all the time we lost. The birthdays. The Thanksgivings. The graduations. I think about Mom and how much she would have smiled to know he made it. That part hurts the most, knowing she died not knowing the truth. But then I remember what Dr. Walsh said, the past is the past. We cannot change it. All we can do is move forward. So that's what we're doing. One day at a time. One awkward conversation at a time. One shared breakfast, one walk by the lake, one new memory at a time. We're learning how to be brothers again. Or maybe, for the first time. Last night, we sat outside after dinner. The air was still and the stars were clear. Tommy looked up and said, "Do you think Mom knows? Wherever she is, do you think she knows I'm alive?" "I think she does," I said. "I think she's been watching over you this whole time. Keeping you safe. Waiting for the day you'd find your way back." He smiled at that. It's still rare, his smile. But it's happening more. And every time, it feels like something sacred. "I'm glad you answered the phone," he said. "Me too, Tommy," I replied. "Me too. And I mean it. Despite the heartache." Despite the confusion. Despite the grief that somehow still exists right alongside the joy, I'm thankful. Because my brother came back from the dead. And that's a miracle I never thought I'd see. If I've learned anything from all of this, it's that hope isn't foolish. Even when it feels impossible. I've learned that people are stronger than they think. That family isn't just about the past, it's about showing up in the present. About choosing each other, every single day. I've learned that second chances exist. And it's never too late to start over. Tommy's still piecing his life together. He may never get all his memories back. The scars will always be there. But he's alive. He's here. He's home. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.